There was a girl, 8 years old, they say, her hair in floppy braids, her innocent face with a childish smile. A girl. There was a girl. There was a girl. There was a girl. Afterwards, there was a mass of red. There was a mass of red. Some torn pieces of meat. Some torn pieces of and meat. Bright rags fluttering. And bright rags fluttering. A girl in a print dress once. In a print dress. They say. They say.
Every time you buy a Cape apple, you are buying a bullet to kill our people. Chief Lutuli, President General of the ANC, Nobel Peace Prize winner, called for sanctions in 1959. Nelson Mandela from prison, Nelson Mandela before he went to prison, Oliver Tambo, President of the ANC. COSATU, the biggest workers' federation we've ever seen in South Africa, calls for sanctions. And Archbishop Tutu and the Reverend Alan Boesak, people inside South Africa today, call for sanctions. And they're the recognized leaders of our people.
We will be telling everybody, we will be telling Ronald Reagan, we'll be telling Margaret Thatcher that we are sick and tired of the killing of our people. And yet the Americans keep on. They've got a hand. The Reagan administration got a hand in their continued support of the South African government in the killing of these youngsters. They've got a hand in the American and the Thatcher administration. We therefore are clearly and aware of the fact that this death couldn't happen without the Reagan supporting the South African government. It has been going on for over 18 months. It's too long.
The Thatcher and the Reagan administration have had a hand in the killing of this youngster? What exactly was that man saying? What did he mean? The British Army didn't shoot this child. The South African Army did. We are not at war with this child. The South African government is.
Oh, you're giving South Africa the foreign currency, which enables them to buy arms abroad.
You're actually providing foreign exchange, pounds sterling, to buy armaments for the South African regime.
In South Africa, in their own country, black people are not allowed to vote. They have no say in how their country is run.
I understand all the frustration to be a highly educated black African person or less educated, to be a full, talented, able person and not to be able to take part in the government of your country, not to be able to live where you wish in the cities, must be so irritating.
When I see people dying like rats, I feel something burning inside me.
They are committing genocide. The world must open its ears and eyes. Subtle genocide is being committed on our people.
The United Nations has judged apartheid to be a crime against humanity.
Must be so irritating, so irritating, so irritating, so irritating, so irritating, so irritating.
I think irritating is the last word that you would describe the oppression and brutality that is going on in my country.
I do want to bring about the end of apartheid. I do think it's urgent, and I will do everything possible that I can, by any influence to bear, to have whatever we conclude are those effective measures.
We are tired of the splendid rhetoric that we have heard from so many Western countries declaring their abhorrence of apartheid and their refusal to translate this rhetoric into effective action.
Today, it is not enough to condemn apartheid verbally. For governments and individuals alike, the real test of opposition to apartheid rests on the issue of sanctions.
My first feeling about seeing so much food, South African products on the shelves in supermarkets here, was that every item that was for sale here was earning foreign exchange for the government to build up their armaments and their machinery to continue the oppression in South Africa.
This crucial dependence of the apartheid state on foreign trade and investment is often ignored by our government. However, in 1988, Britain imported £808 million worth of goods from South Africa. In the same year, the South African regime admitted to spending £1,070 million on armaments, a link that would appear obvious to all. In fact, most of the world agrees that a policy of sanctions would help to isolate South Africa from contacts and supplies which are essential to apartheid survival.
Dated March.
But at the United Nations, two countries have consistently opposed the resolutions for sanctions. Those two countries are Great Britain and the United States of America.
Well, you know, I must be honest and say to you that black people in South Africa view Britain at this moment in an extremely negative light.
Punitive economic sanctions, it all seems strange to me, because the people who you'll be punishing most are the black South Africans, and I find nothing moral about adding to the problems of that troubled country poverty that would come from unemployment.
Well, I find that amazing that Margaret Thatcher, sitting in Britain, can make that statement when people in South Africa themselves have called for sanctions.
The very workers, Mrs. Thatcher says, mustn't lose their jobs because of sanctions. Their leaders in conference called for sanctions because they want to see the end of apartheid.
Workers in South Africa are prepared to pay the ultimate price to get their freedom. And the slogan that's going around now is freedom first, and then the rest can follow.
In World War II, the people of Europe were prepared to destroy their roads and railways and bridges and mines and canals to be free of a foreign occupier which denied them their rights.
If sanctions are applied, yes, there will be suffering, but the important end result is far outweighs any other short-term benefit that we can get.
We need to have a weapon, and that weapon will allow us to see the future, the weapon of sanctions, and we are prepared to suffer the little bit in order that we can have freedom sooner.
To say to a people who suffer under apartheid, whose children die under apartheid, whose adults die of starvation under apartheid, let alone all the shootings and the murders in prisons and the executions behind the walls of South African prisons, it's arrogant to say, don't suffer to be free, just go on suffering.
I hate apartheid as much as other people, but there is nothing in sanctions that will improve the situation. It will make it worse.
What must we say, which we have not yet said? What must we do, which we have not yet done?
I thought I made it clear enough when I said, away with apartheid. I thought it was clear enough when I continued my protest amid your torture. You turned a deaf ear, closed your eyes. Your answer was my brother's gagging. Your answer was my brother's death. My disability cannot be compensated by electricity in our schools. My brother's death cannot be compensated by high fences around my school. Your answer made my teacher quit, leaving me in the wilderness. Can he be replaced by the soldiers from the border? I thought I was clear enough. If I wasn't, I am now. Now is the time to bring me roses, not for my grave, but for myself. Now is the time.
In the barren wastelands, the so-called independent homelands, up to half of all black children are dead by the age of 5. The major cause? Starvation and malnutrition.
Apartheid is racism with a clear economic purpose, giving the white minority one of the highest standards of living in the world and consigning those who are black to poverty and hunger in a nation that actually exports foodstuffs to Britain. Britain is by far the biggest single importer of South African food.
I think it's outrageous that you in Britain, we in Britain, I live here too, have such a wealth of foodstuffs from all over the world to gorge ourselves on, and the people of my country in South Africa are starving. It's outrageous.
The beautiful, pristine Cape apple, for me, when I think of somebody biting into South African fruit, I think of the people who actually produce that fruit and the system which it is a product of. Who picked the fruit, under what conditions they picked the fruit, who owned the farm. That apple is grown and cultivated and picked by farm workers who are the most exploited people in my country. Many of them are women, many of them are children, many of them earn poverty wages, many of them don't earn any wages at all and get paid in kind. Many of them are shipped from their homelands on the back of trucks and work through the night under floodlights. Many of them are sprayed with pesticides while they are picking that fruit, and that for me is what buying a Cape apple in Sainsbury's means.
What must we say, which we have not yet said? What must we do, which we have not yet done?
We face a catastrophe in this land, and only the action of the international community by applying pressure can save us. Our children are dying. Our land is burning and bleeding. And so I call on the international community to apply punitive sanctions.
The real problem in South Africa is that in spite of all of the criticisms of it, and we are the first to criticize apartheid, it is still by far the best run economy in Africa.
So, with a government who, for whatever reason, are refusing to impose sanctions on South Africa, what can we do as individuals?
The people of Great Britain, as individuals, can act themselves through personal sanctions, people sanctions.
Rejecting apartheid is not just something that only involves a very few people, politicians or artists or people who have a voice or people who are in some way know politically what's going on there. It's very, very simple. We can all be involved.
If all of us in Britain and in the international community look at what we buy, look at the labels, and make sure that we're not buying South African goods, and realize that buying South African goods, in fact, is supporting and perpetuating an oppressive system.
It's the least I can do. It doesn't affect my day-to-day life. People in South Africa are living under a regime that I certainly don't have to experience and couldn't even possibly imagine. And all that they are asking me, the people who are suffering are asking me to do, is not to buy South African produce. Well, it's no hardship on my behalf.
I think it's a gesture, a very important gesture of solidarity, because black South Africans have asked for this. They've actually asked for us to do this. And I consider it the greatest human respect we can pay to them, to do the simplest thing, which is just not to buy a certain apple. It's the least we can do. It's so simple. Just don't buy those apples.
In Britain, many people have already decided to boycott South African produce. Why?
A tiny, tiny bit of solidarity.
What's happening in South Africa, where a black man cannot live in certain areas and cannot go to certain places simply because he's black is just basically wrong.
I just look somewhere else that, you know, you can get lots of other apples, other grapes, other oranges, and I don't feel any guilt complexes because I didn't buy fruits from a place that I know is personally making people suffer because of the colour of their skin only.
And it's just basically wrong.
We are going to take action, and we are going to see to it that these laws are coming to an end.
The British public have a lot to learn from the sorts of consumer boycotts that we've had in South Africa.
Monday is the D-Day. We want buying down on Monday.
Concessions have been gained, victories have been won from the boycott campaigns.
We are going to boycott them. We are going to boycott them.
If there's enough people who are boycotting, then it will make a difference.
Everybody's 20p's added up together makes a great deal of money.
People may look at it and think, well, you know, one apple isn't going to make too much difference. But, you know, obviously if, say, 20 people get together and decide not to buy apples, it's 20 apples. And if 20,000 people get together and decide not to buy it, it's 20,000. So, you know, collectively, it can help.
If that 20p is not only an investment in saying no to what's going on in South Africa, but an investment in saying to our government, we don't agree with your attitude to the regime there, then, you know, it's money well not spent.
Just don't buy those apples.
Boycott South Africa now, and when our country is free, come back and help us rebuild it as a new South Africa.
We want a government based on the will and wishes of the people.
When the black people of South Africa have won their freedom, they will set all South Africans free to simply live as human beings. It's important to live as human beings, with children who can eat, children who can see doctors, children who can go to school, parents who can work.
Monday is the D-Day. We want buying down on Monday. We want buying down on Monday. We want buying down on Monday. We want buy even a box of matches on Monday. We want buy even a Cadbury on Monday. We want buy the ice creams on Monday. We are going to boycott them on Monday. Monday is a great day for us. Monday is a great day for us. We are going to boycott them. We are going to boycott them. We want to know why these killings. We want to know.
When we hand over 20p for our Cape apple, we must know exactly what we're paying for. A Cape apple isn't just simply an apple. An outspent orange isn't just an orange. They are the fruits of fear, extracted through torture and sold for profit. By refusing to buy this apple, we are playing a part in sowing the seeds that will nurture the fruits of freedom. The choice is ours.
Like a straight pine, I point my finger at God, counting 1,000,000 scars on my dreams. And somewhere in the ghetto, a child is born. A mother's anxiety and pain hide in a forest of hope. Like a weeping willow, I drop my soul into a pool of fire. Somewhere in the ghetto, I hear the sound of a freedom song. The child has risen, undaunted, unafraid, and walks defiantly towards the lion's lair. Somewhere, I hear the sound of a freedom song. Somewhere. Tell my people that I love them and that they must continue the struggle. Do not worry about me, but about those who are suffering. My blood will nourish the tree which will bear the fruits of freedom.